Greetings, everyone. Jim Walker here. Thanks for stopping by my YouTube channel. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you who are return viewers, shall we say. Today's lesson is another one that's prompted by my experiences with at least some of my private students. And this is more towards the drum students, although it could apply to other instruments as well. One thing that drum students do, and I still do this even at my advanced age, is as we practice, we play along to recordings. And it's something I encourage all of my drum set students to do, even from a very early stage in their development. And they will bring in some really good things. I get a lot of classic rock. We get Beatles, we get Fleetwood Mac. I had one student who was basically working his way through the entire Billy Joel album, The Stranger. We get a lot of Boston, you get Led Zeppelin, you get into Nirvana, so I may be going beyond the classic rock category specifically, but you get the idea. Some good stuff, some great drumming, and the challenge I get is getting my students, with rare exception, getting my students interested in finding out who the drummers are on these recordings. I just can't seem to get through that firewall. I had one student in particular who he came into his lesson. I said, "Do you have a song you want to work on?" And he said, "Yeah, actually I'm forming a band with some friends of mine at school." I said, "That's great. Go on." He said, "Yeah, we're going to be playing at the school's talent show in about a month." I said, "That's great. Go on." He said, "Yeah, we want to do Knocking on Heaven's Door." I said, "Okay. Do you mean the Guns N' Roses version?" He says, "Oh, no. We want to do the original. We want to do Bob Dylan's version." I said, "That's my boy." So we got into it. We were working on it, playing along to it. And partway through the lesson, I said, "By the way, do you know who's playing drums on this?" "Nope." I said, "That's your assignment. When you come into the studio next week for your lesson, I'm going to ask you who the drummer is on Bob Dylan's Knockin' on Heaven's Door, and I'd like to get an answer." So I sent him off. 167 hours, 30 minutes later, he comes back through the door to my studio. We start working on it. I said, "Okay, you know what's coming. The question, who's the drummer on this?" "I don't know." "Did you look it up?" "Nope." He's a really good student. He's since graduated and gone on to bigger things. He practiced. He was a self-starter, but just this one topic, I couldn't break through to him. So that's what today's lesson is. This is for the benefit, especially of my students who are viewing this. A little reinforcement in terms of why I'm asking you to find out who the drummers are on these recordings that you're bringing in. So, give me a chance to move my camera so you can see what I'm writing down here. We're going to go kind of low tech on this lesson, but you'll see where we get there in a minute. So, back in a moment. All right, so as you can see, we're going really high tech in this lesson. We'll get a little high tech in a minute. But I got my blank piece of paper and my Pentel. It's not even a Sharpie. I got a Pentel. I love these things. I don't even know how old this thing is, and it still works great. But I'm going to create a flow chart, a family tree, if you will. And I'm going to base this off of the student I mentioned in the introduction, the student who's, let me move the microphone, hopefully the sound will be a little bit better. Hopefully that's a little happier. Basing this off of the student who brought in Knockin' on Heaven's Door, wanted to do the original Bob Dylan version. I asked him who the drummer was. He didn't know, and I couldn't get him to look it up. So, the student will be our starting point on this. Why look up who the drummer is? What benefit is there? And there's a couple of benefits for this. So the first, let's just map this out, because there's two layers to the onion on this. Now, the first thing I want to get to, one of the biggest frustrations with this is not only the fact that I can't communicate the benefit of doing this, but that it's so easy to do. And I'm going to start with this thing here with our phone. This is someone else's line. I didn't come up with it. We're walking around with the Library of Alexandria in our pocket. These little slabs of non-biodegradable toxins. I can't stand the things, but apparently they're here to stay, so I might as well get some use out of them. And if it's there to be looked up, you can use one of these things to get to it. So I'm going to enter in, I'm not even going to do complete sentences. I'm just going to use some critical words. Dylan knocking on, some of these are coming up because I've been practicing, Heaven's Door. Someone time me as I'm doing this. Knocking Heaven's Door, drummer. All right, let's hit the search button, see what comes up. Alrighty, Working. Musicians want to join a band. Great. Well, knocking on heaven's door. Sheet music, drum cover, the drum lesson, Wikipedia. Where we got? What we got? Some song facts. Here we go. The story behind Bob Dylan's "Knocking on Heaven's Door." Let's see. Let's see. Where's it? Yeah, let's use this one. I haven't even gotten. I'm not even clicking on the article. Bob Dylan guitar and vocals. Roger McGuinn on guitar. Jim Keltner on drums. This was even with my blathering on here. How quick was this? How easy was this? I didn't even type in complete sentences. I'm going by the description of what came up in my search engine, and I've got the answer. Jim Keltner was the drummer. Now, I knew that anyway. That's why I asked him in the lesson, but if you don't know, it's right there. And there are some things which are tough to find for some reason. Don't ask me why. I was trying to figure out who the drummer was on some of those Neil Diamond records. My mom and dad are big Neil Diamond fans, my mom in particular. So I got to hear that a lot. And thinking back, I wasn't thinking as a drummer. I was like 6, 7 years old at the time, but I heard some great drummers. Like, who was on there? Ron Tutt toured with him, but I am digressing here. I couldn't find it. There are some examples where you're not going to be able to find the information all that easily. But from the mid-70s on, it became pretty common to list all the players on a recording. So we're going to set this silly thing aside for now. We may get back to that later if we need it. But if it's out there, you can probably find out who played on it. So let's go with this, and let's see where this leads us. And we could get back to the phone and keep doing some the same sort of search engine stuff. But I'm familiar with the topic. I'm a big Jim Keltner fan. Who isn't a big Jim Keltner fan? But so a lot of this stuff I can just kind of riff, and I just know the answers already. So it'll speed up the process a little bit. But we're going to walk our way through this thing. So we're starting. We've got Bob Dylan. That's our starting point, knocking on heaven's door. And with what, like 15 seconds of searching? We got to Jim Keltner. I'm going to try to keep this a little bit more legible. My father's a retired landscape architect. My mother's a retired secretary. They have lovely script. It skips a generation. But hopefully this will be enough where you'll be able to follow along and read what I'm writing here. To the topic at hand. The first reason to find out who these drummers are, if you like the recording and you like the drumming, and you like the drumming enough that you want to play along to it, you might like some other things that the same drummer has done. And if you don't know who the drummer is, it's kind of hard to find out more stuff they've done. If you look up who the drummer is, immediately you find some options. I'm just going to go through a couple here. Jim Keltner was and continues to be a very prolific recording artist working in the studios in LA and around the world. So this is just going to scratch the surface of some of the stuff he's done. So let's just pick out a couple of names in particular. So right now we're looking for different things Jim Keltner's played on. You do a little bit of looking and you will find Joe Cocker, the Mad Dogs and Englishmen tour, an album. There was a film. So there, already we got something else to listen to. I'm going to come back to each of these. But we're just going to do this first round, this first layer of the onion to begin with. Keep looking at Jim Keltner. Within very short order, you will hear of the great guitarist Ry Cooder. And Keltner's played on a ton of Ry Cooder's solo stuff. And the two of them, along with John Hyatt and Nick Lowe, I always blank on Nick Lowe's name, which is, I don't understand because I love his playing and his songwriting. But they combined, first they played on John Hyatt's Bring the Family album, and then released something as a group under the title Little Village. Recommend both of those albums highly. So now we've got two things we can listen to. Let's keep going. Another thing, if you look at even just a little bit of Jim Keltner online, you will discover references to the song Josie by a little band called Steely Dan. More stuff, more Keltner to listen to. Coming back to each of these too. Let's throw in one more. Keltner in later years worked with the Traveling Wilburys. and they did 2 albums. They toured. Yeah, coming back to each of these. But right now, just that little bit of searching, we've got all this additional material to listen to. You like what Jim Keltner did with Bob Dylan on Knocking on Heaven's Door? Maybe you like some of this other stuff. You can't check it out if you don't know who it is. Played the drums. If you want to find out who played the drums on this, then it leads you to a bunch of different areas. That's the first layer on this. And that alone is valuable. You can go a step further. Check out each of these. Let's find out some of the other musicians on this. Let's go right around the horn. We mentioned Joe Cocker, the Mad Dogs and Englishmen tour. Check into this, you find out there were 2 drummers in the band. The other we've established Jim Keltner is someone we want to listen to. This gig was important enough for him to take. There's a second drummer on it. Maybe we should know who the second drummer is as well. Yes, we should. Legendary drummer. I used to be able to write. Legendary drummer Jim Gordon. Everly Brothers. Joe Cocker. Derek and the Dominoes. He played on That Anticipation. That was Andy Newmark. You're So Vain, if I remember correctly. He was the drummer in that. Carly Simon. So, and you listen to Jim Keltner, he'll mention Jim Gordon. He's just a legendary studio drummer. Very sad personal life, but in terms of his musical contributions, absolutely someone to check out. Head down to Ry Cooder. Ry Cooder's done a bunch of stuff. One thing that comes to mind, and I got to look up the dates on this because I always think it's 1970s, but it's actually in the 1990s. So I'll probably put that little blurb on the video where we add the numbers in to get the dates on this. But one of Ry Cooder's projects, not a drum set thing, the Buena Vista Social Club. Headed down to Cuba, recorded some of the great Cuban musicians down there. Many of whom were getting on in years, documented their playing, documented their music. There was an album, there was a tour, there was a film. I got the film down on my DVD shelf. And high quality music and some great hand drumming, great percussion on there as well. Well worth knowing. As the tangential thing, another project involving Cuban musicians, we worked with the great Cuban guitarist Manuel Galban. And through all of this, again, my apologies for my unfortunate Spanish pronunciation. 3 years of high school German doing me no good whatsoever. Be that as it may. Album with Manuel Galban called Mambo Sinuendo. And one of the tunes, Monte Adentro, has a solo conga break that is just legendary. So in addition to checking out that, Jim Keltner played on that too. So we got more Keltner to listen to, and not only more music to listen to, but something else with Jim Keltner. Let's keep moving. We hit on Josie with Steely Dan. I like this one. And the album Asia, which I believe dropped in 77, and if my notes are correct, it was released on my 11th birthday that year. So I don't think they did it for my benefit, but it's a nice thought. But on that album right there, finding out some other musicians, you want to find some other drummers to listen to, drummers that as you are getting into this, you might not know about. Check out the list of drummers on this one. We got Paul Humphrey. We have Ed Green. We have Rick Marotta. We have a guy you might have heard of him, Steve Gadd. Another drummer, you might have heard of him, Bernard Purdie, as in the Purdie Shuffle. He's got a beat named after him. Bernard Purdie, come on. So just checking out the Asia album. That's just the Asia album, has all these drummers on it. Forget about Wayne Shorter and Tom Scott, and that's just the drummers. So a little bit of digging, now you're aware of all these other drummers. And it doesn't even mention some of the additional drummers that worked with Steely Dan on other projects, including the legendary Jeff Porcaro. And, hey, how's about that, sports fans? Jim Gordon, mentioned him before. So do a little digging. You're going to find out about some more stuff. Let's do one more, trying to keep this video moving. If we did Keltner's entire career, we'd be here for a couple of days. Let's go to the Traveling Wilburys. Now, we don't have other drummers to reference, although Ray Cooper did play percussion on some of the Wilburys albums. But check out some of the other guys in the band. You got Jeff Lynne. You've got Electric Light Orchestra, that Jeff Lynne. Roy Orbison, legendary voice in rock and roll, one of the most iconic voices in rock and roll history. You got Tom Petty in And the Heartbreakers fame. You've got, who am I forgetting? Hey, I forgot someone here. How's about that, sports fan? Bob Dylan. Didn't we mention this guy a minute? Isn't that where we started out? Dylan was with the group. And one more, let's throw this in. George Harrison. You probably heard of him in a little band called the Beatles, with a drummer you might have heard of before, Ringo Starr. So, if you haven't, if you've been under a rock since 1964, yeah. So, forget about the fact that all these guys are producing music that's worth checking out. If you're just looking at drummers, we've gotten from Jim Keltner into Jim Gordon. All these guys on the Asia album, the Cuban drummers from the projects with Ry Cooder, getting into Ringo. You can get some other drummers here. You get into Tom Petty. You're going to get into Steve Ferroni. The list continues. We could be here for a while, and we haven't even scratched the surface on what Jim Keltner's done. We haven't mentioned Warren Zevon. Haven't mentioned a guy you might have heard of him, John Lennon. So Randy Newman. So we could keep going on this. All this from the 15 seconds or so it took me to look up who played drums on Knockin' on Heaven's Door. So I know my handwriting here, it's gruesome. If you can't read this, hit me up in the comments section. I may do a nice version printed up at the end. In fact, that's not a bad idea. I may tag that on at the end, something nice and legible. I used to have nice handwriting back before I got a computer. Then forget it. It's done. It's a lost cause. But the point remains. Check this out. Check out the drummers on these recordings. If you like drumming to an album, you like the drumming on it, find out who the drummer is. And this is true for other instruments. If you're a piano player and you hear a killing pianist, find out who it is. Start digging. Start researching. It's all out there. It's all in here. I hate these things, but we can use them. So check it out. You got a ton of listening available to you now. Do this with your favorite recordings. I picked Jim Keltner because of the one instance with my student, and also because Jim Keltner is a favorite of mine. I'd say he's a hero of mine. But I will leave it at that. I think I've rambled on enough. I think I've burnt up enough time on the internet and taken up enough server space. As always, the comment section will be open. Check out some of the stuff I've mentioned here. Again, try this with some of the stuff you're familiar with. If you haven't done this sort of digging, see where it leads you. And I will wrap things up there. Once again, I find myself at a loss for words, which is a good indication I should stop talking. So we'll leave it there. Have a good day, everyone. Thanks again for visiting, and I will catch up with you next time. Thanks so much.